Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today. This is our first workshop in our AI workshop series for this academic year, and we are excited today to have joining us Dr. Justin Hodgson, who serves as the Strategic Director for GenAI Faculty Initiatives, as well as Associate Professor of English at the Indiana University-Bloomington. Dr. Hodgson has joined us both in person as well as virtually on numerous occasions, and so we're excited for the information that he will share and as we'll engage with him on our topic for today. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to him and we will utilize the time that we have together.
All right. Thank you, Jeremiah, for the introduction, and thanks everybody for joining me. I have been to your campus multiple times, so I have a lot of names I recognize, a lot of faces I know. It's great to be a part of your conversation as you continue to evolve and grow around technologies and teaching and learning. Um, I think since the last time I was there, I got this fancy new title that says I'm in charge of faculty stuff with GenAI, which is really kind of crazy because nobody's really an expert in bringing generative AI into the curriculum, right? The people who make the tools are experts in making the tools, and we're all still just kind of figuring out how to do this stuff really well in the education space. So while I'm here to offer some guidance and suggestions and maybe help you better prepare to begin your own journey, the reality is, the ground shifts so quickly, the tools evolve so rapidly, and what's available among them is unique just about each and every week. So be prepared to be willing to play and discover a lot on your own as you begin your sort of down this road. So my talk today is on From Panic to Power, why Gen AI belongs in every college syllabus. And I put a question in the chat if you didn't see it. I'm curious, if you have a particular platform that you like as a go-to platform, what is your AI tool of choice? Lately, I've really been enjoying ChatGPT and the way that the microphone button works, so I can talk to it. And I also really like Nano Banana, which is the image generator inside of Google. Though, don't get me wrong, I'm a Firefly aficionado. I love Adobe Firefly, but at the same time, there's a lot of these tools that do different things. And I'll highlight some of that as we go. As an example, last summer we had 250 faculty at IU go through a pilot program, and where they tested all the different tools that we currently subscribe to or we're going to purchase for the faculty. And ChatGPT came out as the best in terms of the most varied usage cases. Google Gemini was a close second, just based on preference. But Copilot was the best at working within the system, since the Copilot 365 integrates with like Office and Teams and Outlook. So there's lots of different advantages to these tools. Some are better at like doing graphs and data analysis. Some are better at writing. One that we don't have at IU that I absolutely love is called Claude.ai, and it's Claude like the first name, and it's just one of the better writers. So I give this to you to say like we're all still kind of figuring it out. There's lots of preferences and interest, but I want to frame the conversation a little bit today before I ask you to do some stuff. So if you've been in workshops with me before, this is a hands-on thing, right? But we got to kind of know a little bit behind the why. So let me share my screen and we'll kind of get started. Alrighty. And all this stuff will be made available to you as we go. Okay, so the why. Why do we need AI in the classroom, right? And it starts with helping our students become career ready for me. And we've seen recent studies have shown that employers are increasingly prioritizing AI related skills for a variety of reasons and a variety of positions. With, I think the Microsoft report last year said that 60% or more of new hires were they prioritize AI skills over actual experience in the job. So, I want you to think about that a little bit. If you're a new grad and you have AI related skills and somebody's been doing the job for 2 to 3 years, you may be hired over them, which is kind of astronomical. I think about like how we think about experience and how this stuff works. So we've seen an ongoing increase in the role that AI is playing in industry. We've seen interest in faculty wanting to, and students who believe that AI literacy improves your job prospects. And I was on a panel with some of the folks from Deloitte a couple months back. And as you may know, Deloitte hires like 1,000 people a week globally. And they said the exact same things that these reports said. This is what they're seeing. This is what they're doing. So on the one hand, AI may enable cheating and all those things we're worried about. And there's definitely environmental concerns. But on the other, there's too much money. It's coming too fast. It lives in everything. So we have to better prepare ourselves for this future that we're in. And so, we want to think a little bit about, what is our role? And our role is to figure out what AI looks like in our disciplines, in our industries, in our spaces, so that we can better prepare our students. Because the future workforce won't be about humans versus an AI taking their job. It'll be about people who know how to use AI well. And so we're embarking on that journey. So for me, the question becomes, and this is part of what I get to build at IU, is to help faculty think about, does AI belong in higher education? The answer is obviously yes. We've invested in the tools. I'm assuming your campus has access. I know Copilot is one of the tools you have. The real question becomes, how are we going to shape its role and do this responsibly and ethically with intentionality and work meaningfully with it? Because there is this deep sense of urgency. It's been coming for the last 2 years, but at this point, more and more schools are providing these tools to students. More and more faculty are embracing them. More and more students are graduating with these advanced skills. And so we are, thinking about our role down in this journey as we go. So we're at a crossroads. We have spent a couple years collectively across the U.S. Engaging in fear mongering, and we've moved to somewhat indifference, and now we're seeing people moving toward engagement and this moment, because what we've noticed is that if the way we have historically taught things is no longer sufficient because the tools are too good at it, right? So we have to rethink a little bit about what we're doing, how we're teaching, what we're assessing, and how this stuff fits into our curriculum. And that's sort of where I come in and why this workshop series is here, I think, and hopefully some of the stuff we can get to today. So a couple of quick tidbits to kind of further frame this. Um, recent studies show that 92% of undergraduates use AI tools regularly, right? We've more recently seen faculty and staff kind of to move up in this list, but they typically use it relatively minimally across the system. And this is the tension we're dealing with. Students use it all the time. Faculty and staff are using it less frequently, though it's growing. And not every institution has an AI policy or doesn't have an AI tool they've subscribed to. So there's lots of variation in the space, and we got to find a way to bridge the gap so that we're not left behind. So last 2 years ago, I started on this group called the Facet Leadership Institute, and our job was to look at what ways we might imagine a different future for IU in the era of AI. And we interviewed a bunch of faculty and what they were thinking about and what they wanted to see, but we also interviewed a bunch of students and brought them in as a focus group. And the students had really fantastic perspectives. And I'm assuming the students on your campus have a very similar orientation and that they want teachers to see this as an enhancement tool. They see these tools as opportunities to reduce barriers to creativity. Their learning aids or their power, engagements and those kind of things. The most common student uses we saw were to explain concepts from a class. I had students who would take my weird analogies and turn them all into basketball metaphors, since apparently I'm too dated to make sense anymore. Or they create study guides for their work. They would create practice questions for courses that didn't have practice exams. So we saw a lot of these things that are happening, that students were leveraging these tools as learning aids, not simply to cheat, right? And I think that's the biggest thing we got to get over. Students who want to cheat have always wanted to cheat. They're always going to find a way to cheat if that's their goal. I mean, we have test banks, we have online writing services, all kinds of things. But really, the vast majority of the students we talk with, these were the most common usages for them. But the one thing that stood out to me in particular was over half the students in our focus group said that they were actively deleting periods from their own work, misspelling words, dumbing down the language, trying to remove the sophistication of their work so they didn't get mislabeled as having used ChatGPT in writing their paper, right? And I was horrified. I mean, I'm a writing teacher by trade, and to think that now we've added an additional barrier in place for students because we're not sure how to react and how to do this. So this is part of where we're going, is how do we think about how do we embrace these tools in a way that doesn't disadvantage our students. And it is important we think about it, because for good or bad, the tools can do a lot of things that we're asking our students to do, and they do it really well. The biggest problem for me is not that the tool can write for students, is that it basically, neutralizes student voice. Everything that comes out of ChatGPT sounds like it comes out of ChatGPT. It's like the Kins and Karens of the world, right? Like it's this NPR type style voice. And that we want to think strategically about how do we embrace this opportunity and do so in a meaningful and intentional way. So, what if we design learning experiences where AI is not a shortcut, but rather a tool for deeper exploration? And so that's where we are, right? This is your role. This is the space. This is why we have this conversation today. And how do we think about our roles going forward? And I always tell my own faculty that we want to become AI-enabled mentors and think strategically about the ways we can leverage these tools to better enhance the learning experiences we provide students while also better preparing them for the futures they're going to encounter. And here's some examples on the screen you can see. AI as a teaching assistant helping you build question banks or case studies or scenarios, role playing and skill demonstration. One of my favorite use cases is from the language class at IU on the Bloomington campus, where students were turning the AI tool into basically a conversation partner from a rural community in another country, learning, and they were speaking, French or Spanish or, whatever the languages were native to that space, and engaging in a conversation and scenario skill demonstration. But we've seen it from virtual use cases in health sciences. Obviously, those are folks who do the Adobe Firefly stuff, using it in creativity and expression, and research assistance, and all the ways we might imagine, and more, how these tools are working. So we want to start to rethink its role and position ourselves as AI being an amplifier for faculty, not a replacement. And we want to think about how this can work in terms of mentorship, discussion, intellectual growth, and engagement. What is going on? Okay. Uh, the other thing I like to highlight is that we want to think about our roles here as being responsible stewards. So how should it be used in my discipline? I don't know what it looks like in chemistry or in anatomy or in accounting, right? I know what it looks like in writing, but part of the responsibility is on us to figure these things out. Should it be used and how might it be used? What is a responsible and ethical use of AI? Can AI enhance learning, and what else should students know? And so I'm going to provide a lot of assets today, resources to kind of get you thinking before we get too far down the line. But ultimately, we're trying to rethink what learning and assessment may mean in today's day and age and how we can improve and engage and integrate these things into our curriculum. So how many of you know about prompt engineering? Have you heard this term before? We got a few hands going up. Good. Okay. So the secret to success with all these tools is prompting. And I'm going to give you 2 quick tips to help you get started on your prompting journey. The first one is I call the rocket approach. And this is a more active approach in where you define the role, the objective, the context, the knowledge and information, and the task that you're asking for the tool. And what we want to do is we want to assign it a role, so it becomes has a perspective by which to operate. We want an objective and outcome so it knows what you're trying to accomplish. The context one is really important because the more context you can give it, the better decision making it can make as it's going through its process. I often provide knowledge and information like a syllabus or an assignment design, and then I give it steps and ask it what to generate, right? And so I've got a couple assets I will share, the rocket approach, but to give you an example of what it looks like, I quite literally do this: role, objective, context, knowledge. I mean, I put the brackets and everything. And I have students do this, and what I've found is the metacognition that goes along with this is actually really beneficial. So even if a student turns in a paper that was completely written by Copilot, if they do this as their prompting, they have a deeper and a richer understanding of what they're trying to accomplish, and they get better results, right? So it's an active approach to prompt engineering as we go. And that's, again, I'll share all this stuff with you. I don't want to go too long on it, but there's lots of acronyms out there. There's like BRAIN and CRAFT and CORE, and they're all doing the same thing, which is we want to give it a perspective from which to operate. We want to kind of give it a sense of what we're trying to accomplish. We want to give it some context and make sure we're intentional about our tasks. Right? And if that's too complicated, maybe you're brand new and you're not sure what to do with these tools. The other approach I call the Socratic approach, or the Socratic collaborator. And if you don't know what to do, you can always just ask it to guide you through the process, right? So you might start with, let's say you go to ChatGPT and you say, hey, ChatGPT, I'm trying to prepare a grant proposal for a grant on X. Can you ask me some questions and guide me through the process of producing a proposal draft? And it will start to feed you questions and ask for more information before it builds anything. And so these are the kind of 2 primary approaches to prompting and prompting success. One, you are very prescriptive in all the things you need to give it so it knows how to be successful. And 2, you ask it to guide you along the way. So far, so good? Okay. So that being said, we want to do some challenges today. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a second and kind of, go back. I'm going to give you some sample prompts and ask you to play along with me. And I'm going to stop sharing this. Okay. Where did it go? So if you are in, I am still sharing, never mind. This is what I want to see. I will pull this one over for you so you can see it too. Okay. And I think it's this one, right? There we go. So you should be able to access this document. I'm gonna let you choose your platform of choice, right? But I've given you some prompts here that you can work with to kind of test some things out, right? I'll also include this rocket example if you want. This wonderful graphic by Dacia Charlesworth at IU that kind of explains the rocket approach again. But on the sample prompts, right, I've got 3 that are pedagogically focused and 2 that are kind of program focused. So maybe you want to think more strategically about how we integrate these things into our work. One of my favorite activities for faculty is they want assignments that are more AI resilient as a starting point, and that makes perfect sense. And so you can quite literally, you can just copy all this stuff like this, right? And then when you go to your tool of choice, let's say I want to go to Gemini, I'm going to just paste it in here. It's got everything. And then I would want to attach my assignment, right? And so I don't think I have an assignment available, but, and let's go to handouts. So I'm getting pinged here. What is going on? Cancel. So you can then add your assignment there, and you click the button, right? It'll run on its own, and it will give you an output that matters. So we might say, where did my assignment go? I lost my whole thing. I love when this happens, and I just had this thing open too. I assume you all have the same problem when you're looking for everything on your computer and it disappears, right? I like to think there's an AI bot that's messing with me. Right? So we go to courses. Anyways, you can try that. I'm going to find it and I'll show you in a second. But you might also try the tilting an existing assignment. So if you're familiar with transparency in learning and teaching, again, you can this is an assignment created by Eric Brinkman at the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning at IU Bloomington. You can copy the prompt and just fill in the blank like it's Mad Libs, right? And you'll see it's got the rocket content. You are an experienced higher education consultant. That's the role I am. Here's my goal, right? So it kind of gives you all the breakdown of what you're looking for. And if that one doesn't work, you might think strategically about just instead of making an AI resilient assignment, you might design an AI forward assignment. So you can copy and paste this particular prompt and attach your assignment as well. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to play along with that, and I will find my example and show you as well. But if you're on Copilot as your choice on campus, that should mean it's relatively data safe. If you are on your own personal account, like if you're on Copilot on your own, or Gemini, or ChatGPT on a paid account or free account, be aware that anything you upload into those tools will become part of their training system if you're not on a data secure or an on-premise security account, which is typically when we make an enterprise agreement with a tool like this, it becomes safe and for us to use internally. But if you're on a paid account or you're on the free account, anything you put into it, it's going to go back to that tool. So you want to be very careful about uploading any sort of sensitive data or information. So Laura's question I will get to in a little bit. We're going to do a scaffolding structure, right? So first, I want to think, for me, it's about like, how do I bring this stuff into my classroom in meaningful and intentional ways? And so I can use it for my own work, design assignments. I might tilt an assignment to make it more clear and transparent to students, or I might design resilient assignments because I think it needs to live in our curriculum. And I'll find an assignment here. So if I go back to my prompt sample assignment, there was a Gemini, and I add my final project option 1. So I added a doc. I'll let it run. Well, this is the Minecraft assignment. It's already pretty AI resilient. So you can see it breaks down my process in ways that try to highlight how it will be AI resilient or be structured for the engagement. And one thing I like about Gemini, it does this a lot, where it'll give you the explanation of what it did, and it shows you the links to the document. So if you're worried about it making things up, because they do occasionally hallucinate, this one even gave me a rubric too. That's very nice. Is anybody having success yet? Stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody. So take a few minutes, right, and try and complete one of these challenges. And at this point, it's copy and paste the prompt, provide your content. If you're finding success, you can give me a thumbs up. If you have questions or challenges you run into, feel free to chat and put it in the chat. I'm happy to respond. I want to give you some time to be successful, because one of the hardest things to do is get over that initial hump of like, oh, this is how I structure things, and this is how I can play with them, right? And if you're freaking out, that's okay too. Okay, well, we can help you get there too. Yeah. And like I said, Laura, I'll definitely get to your question when we start talking about scaffolding these things into the classroom. But as always, my rule is the same. If you don't know how to do something or you're unsure what to do, just go to the tool and ask it to help guide you through the process. Say, you are an instructional design consultant helping faculty integrate content into the classroom in meaningful ways, and I would like you to guide me through how I might bring this stuff into work with my students in ways that are ethical and intentional and whatever. And here's my syllabus, here's my course, blah blah blah, right? And it will at least give you a starting point. I can give you more guidance than that too, but I just um, honestly, this is one of my favorite uses of these tools now. Is I'm I'm prompting it to prompt me to figure out how I should do something well, even in areas that I consider myself relatively an expert in. It's still a useful heuristic to get content done. Okay, we get about 40 more seconds. Alrighty. So hopefully you've been able to at least try something, accomplish something, right? Begin your journey down this pathway. I'm assuming you've already begun your journeys before today, but it's always nice to be part of the conversation and try things out with people around, um, and to see what your experiences are like and talk about what your experiences are like. If you'd like to share, please unmute. You can unmute and share. Otherwise, I'm happy to continue. But I always want to make sure that we're comfortable and then being successful as we go. And I had a number of thumbs ups. Did anybody get anything they really liked? I take that as a no.
I can just quickly share that I tried it in three different places, the same thing, and just to see what sort of being a computer science
Yeah.
faculty, I always do that. So I tried ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude,
Mhm.
and the same thing. So I copied your prompt and used one of my assignment to see what it does. And for some reason, Gemini is not yeah, it didn't produce anything. It's like gibberish kind of thing. So I don't know what going on. ChatGPT was very fast. Claude is also good. So, but
Yeah.
it gives you a lot of different things.
Yeah. That's great. I'm glad you tested the different tools. I mean, this is quite literally what we did all summer with our like 200 to 250 faculty, was had them test a variety of different complete challenges using using all three tools, right? So they had the same challenge and they would try with different tools to give us a sense, because it just works better and different for different disciplines and different problems. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. So that's great. Jim and I gave you gibberish. It's I love it. Uh, so as you start to think about these things, the prompts I gave you, right, were how to design an AI resilient assignment, how to increase transparency in teaching and learning with an existing assignment, or how to make an AI forward or AI facing assignment. And when you do those, it always comes down to then a question of how do we how do we also then talk to our students about it, right? The number one thing we found from our faculty institute group and our student institute group was they both wanted to spend time in class talking about their AI policies, right? And wanted clarity on the AI policy, because what students can do in my class is different than, Jeremiah's class. And so every class, every assignment is different, and it's important to take the time to have those conversations. But one of the ways I help guide faculty on this process, and something just a place to start, doesn't mean it has to be the end all be all, is created this AI ethics of practice document, which I may have shared before in the past. But for me, when you bring them in the classroom and you're having these discussions, it really comes down to two categories: policy versus practice. Right? What are your policies and what do they need to be aware of? And I particularly highlight like the privacy and data protection issues with policy, not just the plagiarism stuff. Um, and the legal and ethical boundaries. So they're prepared to know that when they leave here, they may go into industry or may go work for a company where they're not allowed to put company content into one of these tools, because you're sharing industry data in a way that you don't want to share. I know my favorite example of misuse unintentionally so was when the tools first came out. Folks who were reviewing grant applications for the National Science Foundation were using ChatGPT to write the grant review of the grants, which means they're putting potentially patented and copyrighted, I mean, multi-billion dollars worth of content into the tool. And so that got flagged right away. Thankfully, right? So we want to be responsible in our use too. So if you need some language to think about how to have this conversation, I share this document with you, but there are tons of them out there that you can give you some orientation to. Syllabus statement, policy guides. But I'm always a big fan of like, I'm just upfront honest when I use the tools. And I think disclosure is part of how we build trust and credibility. And so if I've used a tool to help create an idea, I disclose that. There are various citation styles that go with them. None of them are great right now. I think the last I heard, APA said you have to cite, you have to put your entire prompt in. I'm like, sometimes my prompts are like 80 pages long. You don't want that. That's not, nobody needs that nonsense. But the idea still remains, right? What should you disclose versus what do you not need to disclose? And we've actually been using AI for a long time, so this isn't really new in that space. Just it's the generative part's really throwing us off. So that's something to think about. I want to highlight another example, because I think Laura's question is the point. How do you bring AI into the classroom, right? And so something I'm doing this semester in our faculty development program for generative AI is showing folks how to and talking about how do you scaffold activities into the classroom such that you're building on top of each other and leading to a more sort of measurable progression and outcome, right? And so I have this sample framework for scaffolding an assignment. It doesn't work in all classes. I'm typically in a writing class, so I have a little more writing class or a media sort of creation based kind of course. I'm a humanist by trade, even though I spend as much time dabbling in computer science and informatics and media as I do anywhere else. But if you look at the guide here, and hopefully all can access that. The link is in the chat. Um, so it kind of goes through. I always think we need guided introductions to get students started. Then we want to think about supervised implementation, and then we want to think about advanced integration. Those are my categories. And it's really important to me that we spend time offering thoughtful, meaningful guidance to them in these processes, because as an expert in my field, what I can do with these tools is incredible. But as a novice who doesn't have that expert level knowledge, right, they're kind of figuring out, learning as they go. And sometimes it's sloppy, and sometimes it's messy, and sometimes it's putting things at risk. And so, my job is to not only talk about these things, but to model certain practices that can be helpful for them, and then to give them some of that structured guidance as we go. They can't use AI on everything. Some assignments they can use AI in certain parts, sometimes they can't. But every time they use AI of any kind of meaningful category, I try to ask for some sort of reflective element or critical analysis of what was produced and why it matters. And I think that's the biggest thing I tell students. These tools do not own anything they make. If you make something with a tool, you are the one who owns it, and therefore you're the one who's accountable for whatever you put into the world from these tools, right? That's currently how the legal stuff is set up. So anything you turn into me that was built through this tool is you are accountable for that work. Um, and so I'll give this example. I had a student who misunderstood with my AI guidance and had Copilot write an entire paper last fall for him. But rather than give him the F, I asked him, okay, well, because he was open about it. He's like, I didn't realize I missed, it's my mistake. I'm like, fine. Tell me why you think this paper meets the criteria and the expectations of this assignment. Do an analysis of it. Tell me what it does well and grade it. And he wrote this really nice reflection analysis on the paper and why he thought it was a C plus. I'm like, why did you turn in a C plus? If you right, it's not doing good work. And he explained why he thought it was why it came out at such a bad level. After we got to talk about prompt engineering and how this works. And he thought his prompt was a problem. His prompt wasn't sophisticated enough, or he took the first iteration. I would say this is a used car negotiation, right? You never take the first offer, right? You want to keep going back and forth, working iteratively. So in this document that I've provided here, I'm going to make a share real quick so we can all look at the same thing in case you're not on the page. Now I'm over here now. So it's good. I got things in the way everywhere I go. Okay. So guided instructions, supervised implementation. And once you get to step 2, right, I always think about adding a reflection component to the work. And then a more advanced integration where we are working through content, thinking about disciplinary applications. And it might be this specific tools, specific processes. And then thinking about the reflection component specifically. Because I think we know, I think most of the teaching and learning research will tell you this. Metacognition and reflection and learning are 2 critical values that improve student performance and understanding, as is active learning. And so if the tool can help us with metacognition in terms of the prompt engineering part, and we can design activities to get them to think reflectively about what they've created and why it matters, we've actually started to do things that we've always known work well, but we just haven't had an easy way of bringing it to the classroom. So in many ways, the technologies are actually I would say they're inviting us to be more forward thinking in how we teach and how we learn and how we structure these things. So I've given you some tips and guides for deliverables, right? The starting point about integration. It's not the end all be all kind of thing. And then I even broke down, like, here's how I brought it into my English 171 class, which counts as first year composition credit on the IU campus. So we started by having them create a micro exposition or story that explains the concept using the tools. Then they have to create an image, and they have to put it all together using Adobe Express, right, web page. So they use Adobe Firefly to create the image, or Nano Banana and Gemini. And we talk about how that works for them and what they learned from the experience and what they developed. And they're responsible tips and tricks, and they start sharing strategies from each other. They very quickly learn about what's called chaining, which is when you take a complex task and you break it into smaller parts. Because if you give it all the process all at once, it's just not as good as if you chunk it out, because it'll retain the information from the conversation as it goes. So it actually builds better if you take a multi-step process and turn it into like 5 different steps. So they learn about chaining. Students will also very quickly realize that 2 things, or one thing that really is helpful, is if you tell it it's really important and you ask it to do a good job, the tool actually is measurably better in its output. I don't know why, but that is consistently showing up to be the case. And if you're in some of these tools and you have, like in my case, if you're in ChatGPT, for example, you have a project folder, and Gemini has it as well. You can do, well, sorry, they did have, I lost them for now. You can, anything you put into a project folder, every prompt in that folder will be able to pull information from that project. So once you start, right? So like here's my son and his buddies have a Dungeons and Dragons group. He's 14, so bear with me. But he's been using the tool to help create content for the game. And you see, like, these are all the different campaign elements that they've created, but they can all reference one another now when he's building content. The same is true for my Faculty Fellows Challenge stuff here, right? So you can see how that kind of works in process. Projects and chaining and agents and all those good things. But if you're really confused and you're not really sure what to do and you want a place to start, and I'm going to give you like 10 minutes to play with this too before we jump to challenge number 3, is you can use the prompt here. I've given you this full detailed prompt to try and ask it to guide you through how to scaffold it into your own course. All you really need is, well, the full version, you need your syllabus, and title and description, outcomes, if you have them, major assignments, and context and tools that matter, this sort of content, right, that you're going to attach or paste in. But if you're want to do the quick version, you can just copy and paste this, and add your syllabus. as long as your syllabus has those things. So I'm going to give you like about 8 minutes, 9 minutes to play with these prompts to look at the work, right? See if you can get it to help you scaffold some activities in your course. And if you're feeling adventurous, you can try it across multiple tools, right? Because I do love that. And so we'll give you some time to work. And if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer things, but it's really more of like, can you try some stuff and tell me what happens? It's a great question. Dr. Harper Harrison, is it safe to upload your syllabus, right? If it's on your campus and you have an agreement with them, like Copilot, for example, if you have I'm guessing some kind of agreement with Copilot, probably it's fine because it's not going back into the training models. If you're worried about the intellectual property content being used at ChatGPT or those other tools, if you are on a free account, then absolutely it can become part of their training models, right? But in the same way that if the syllabus lives somewhere online, that it could access it without having to like pay for it or get permissions for it, it can already scrub that information from the internet. Um, if you're on the paid account, so like the paid pro account for ChatGPT, the latest model, you have the option to allow it to train on your content or not. You can toggle that on and off. So if you've paid and you turn it off, then you should be fine. This is also why I don't mind using my own content um, rather than student content, right? I would never put student content in any of these tools that IU hasn't already provided me to use because it's not I don't want to do that to students. But so at that point, it's really a matter of what you're comfortable with. And I don't want to encourage you to get rid of your intellectual property. Like, that's not the goal, but just to be aware that that is a risk. So if that's something you want to do, then maybe the scaffolding assignment isn't right in what you might instead of giving it your syllabus, you might just give it the description, like my course and title, and some ideas about the assignments. And can you help me give me a scaffolding that might work for this type of course? Do the hypothetical part. Yeah. All right, we'll give you like 2 or 3 more minutes to try and work your way through this challenge. As always, if you're running into issues or frustrations, share in the chat. Or if you're being successful, share in the chat, right? Otherwise, it's just me staring into space for 2 minutes. Give you about 1 more minute. That's great that it provided a full semester worth of stuff. At least a starting place, right? All right, we are 12:44. I want to give us time to debrief in case folks want to share. I know Dr. Harper Harrison has shared the Claude provided the full semester for the stuff, assignments and whatnot. And one of my favorite go-to uses of these tools in teaching is, again, I love active learning things, but my default active learning strategy is think, pair, share, or think, pair, make, share. And so I kind of get too reliant on it. So a lot of times before class, I'll say, my lesson today is on X. I'm trying to cover this kind of content. Here's the syllabus, whatever. Can you give me 3 different options that I might do for an active learning session for class? I know that I typically use this, so don't choose this one. And it will just pull from an active learning database and then say, all right, you might try the fishbowl method or the jigsaw puzzle. And then I'll say, well, can you give me the instructions that I could just share with students? So I've turned, basically a Google Gem, the custom GPT, into a active learning production tool, so that on any given course I can just give some basic content, some ideas of how the class I want it to go, and it'll just give me some guidance on that work. Which is offloading the intellectual work to a certain extent, but it's not like they're active learning strategies I'm unfamiliar with. I like think, pair, share, and it feels if I use it too much, it just ruins the day, right? So I want to break it up a little bit and maybe do some interviews or scenario based training or simulations, um, case scenario kind of stuff to get them to work through. Anybody else have some good stuff happen when you're in these spaces?
Yeah, I can again
Hey, go
go
ahead.
back, share. So I use the short, the one that you have, the short, quick
Prompt. Yeah.
starting prompt, and I used one of my course syllabus, and I tried ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude again.
Mhm.
Claude was very slow this time. So 2 things I'll just summarize. One thing is this is a course that for not computer science students, but for other majors. It's a data science course. So
Mhm.
since students are coming from a lot of different places, I cover basic stat at the beginning. And it's explicitly said in my current one that we are going to do that and all of that good stuff. But both ChatGPT and Gemini, completely ignored that. It's completely in data science, machine learning, and all of that. Only Claude take that and put that in.
Yeah.
Okay. Other thing that I noticed is all three is very ambitious. They're thinking I'm teaching at MIT or somewhere else, because it's thinking I have 10 different TAs and stuff like that, because the scaffolded thing it provided me, I wish I can do all of that in my class with all the help I have. So yeah,
This is
definitely I need to
yeah.
work around that.
This is where that extra information comes in handy. Like, I'm at this campus. These
Yeah.
are my limitations. There's only one of me, right? As I like to say. Also, something you'll find very quickly is that these tools, for good or bad, they have real trouble figuring out time chunks. Like, they think everything can be done in 10 minutes, right? Or a 5 minute chunk. And I'm like, so we adjust that. But I'm glad at least it gave you something in a very ambitious platform. Too fun. But this is the part that I enjoy a lot because it's so I would get that and I would go back and say, okay, this is really helpful, but I can't possibly do that. Can we break this down further? You know, I would start to refine, and I'm sure as you would as well. Um, Anyone else before I jump on? Yeah, go ahead. Shane.
Hey, I have one comment for use the ChatGPT. So that ChatGPT is wonderful. So especially for ourselves, like so who is not English, not native language. So put the same something together, so the email and the polish English is wonderful. But when the ChatGPT do some kind of math for the physics, just a couple of days ago, I tried one physics question using ChatGPT 4.0 and 5.0. They have different answers.
Yeah.
So my opinion is, ChatGPT is wonderful, but usually I use a reference. Once created anything, I need to check on myself. Just want to make sure everything is as possible as accuracy. So.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely want to check everything, especially on the ChatGPT side, or if you have tools that go out to the internet to find information, like ChatGPT 5 does, right? It can often just get things incorrect. It still tells me I'm the wrong person. I know that it messes it up. And we know that it does have different tools do better in different areas, and there may be physics specific tools, right? Math specific tools that work in these areas that is not ChatGPT. But yeah, this is tip number 5 today, right? Always check whatever it gives you, right? So because it may look right, but the example I'll give you is we have this the generative AI faculty fellows program that I run, and we had 150 applicants basically for 35 spots. And so part of the process, we asked ChatGPT if it could help us rate and rank the candidates based on the criteria we provided. And it gave us a top 20 from Bloomington, top 10 from Indianapolis, all of our campuses. But 6 of the top 20 from Bloomington weren't even in the applicant pool. They were just people from
Oh,
IU, even though we told it only use this Excel form, right? So I'm like, that guy didn't apply. What is going on? So yeah, we even in a restricted access point, it still sometimes makes mistakes. But it's
okay. Thank you so much. Thank
yeah,
you.
it's a good point to make, though. I love that. Um, and the other point I'll highlight is one of my favorite uses of the tool. So we have Copilot here as well, but I have a Copilot 365 account, so it's like the pro account, the paid version. Um, and every Friday at 1 o'clock, I ask Copilot to look through my emails and my team's messages and tell me which ones I have failed to respond to, even if they're marked as red. And because it's integrated in the system, it not only does it give me the emails and the messages, it ranks them by their importance in the org chart for IU. So if you are the CIO, your messages come up first, right? It's sort of really helpful tool because I often draft responses and forget to hit send because I get distracted. It's like, I don't know, it's my ADHD kicking in. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to end. We got about 9 minutes left. I'm going to show you one more fun thing, and this has been the simplest, easiest, most welcomed approach to AI in the classroom on my campus, on just about every campus I visit lately. And it's a tool called Notebook LM, right? And so Notebook is a Google tool. Has anybody heard of Notebook LM before? Some folks have, okay. So you can go to notebooklm.com. You sign in with your account. It's free to anybody to use. Notebook LM is what's called a RAG, and it's a retrieval automated generator, right? And so an LLM, which is what ChatGPT is and Gemini is, the RAG is basically an LLM put on top of a closed archive, right? So it says only use these things. So I'm going to share my screen so you can kind of see what's going on. And this is honestly one of my favorite tools to use with students because it's safer, it has fewer hallucinations in a lot of ways, and it's a great research tool. So if you go to, if you go to Notebook LM and you sign in, you see I've signed in here. It's got my IU account, okay? But I can sign in my personal account and it's going to work too. And you're going to click create a notebook. And the first thing it's going to ask you to do is to give it information to work with. You can use one PDF, you can use 5, you can put a bunch of links, you can put YouTube videos and you can link them in here. Just know that whatever you put, it's going to treat as like one data set rather than one article at a time. So for my example, I've choose to upload a file. Do I have one in here? This is a gaming pedagogy one. That's fine. It'll work. This is on. And so as soon as I pull it in, it's going to automatically create a summary and create an interface interaction that I can have with it. And I can share this particular link with students, and each student who comes to this page will have their own iteration engagement with this tool. It won't mess up anybody else's. So I could ask questions of the text right here. I could just say, what's this text about? It would give me a summary. I could say, what's the weather like in Dubai? And it would tell me that's not in this document, right? It specifically is only pulling information from the content I've shared, which is this one PDF, which is about an article I wrote. So within this, though, we can do a mind map, right? And so it'll take a minute. It'll map out all the topics in the text, and then you can interact with it that way. So I can click here. So now you get my article. Course design is a game. I can keep moving further and further down this rabbit hole if I want, and then I can even ask it questions. If I double click, right? So you can vote. It's not gonna let me do it now. Of course, it's not gonna do. So you can very quickly see the information on the page, right? Whoa, and go away. Okay, go back. How do I get back to the thing? Why did they change all the content? Okay, there we go. We'll reload this page. Okay, so if you're in this, you go to reports, right? You can create a briefing doc, you can do a study guide for students. They can create a blog post if you want to share it on your local blog or your LinkedIn page, right? It's got all kinds of options that it can create for you from this one document. You can make flashcards for studying, you can build quizzes. It's going to generate a quiz on this if you want. But the tools that I love, and I haven't quite done the video overview, it just came out like last week and I haven't had a chance to play with it, is this button called audio overview. And it's going to take probably too long to load. So I'm going to go back to and give it the example here. So that ethics document I just shared with you, right? You see I already have an audio file here that's been generated. If you click the tool, the edit tool under audio file, you can change the length, you can change the style or type, and you can even tell it what to focus on. This one I think is by default just an audio file. So if you can listen, let's see if you can hear me. I don't know. It's thinking. It's not doing anything yet. Basically, it turns your article into a podcast, but it's not working. Let's try the interactive version.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, your essential shortcut to being well informed on the topics that truly matter. Today, we're plunging into something that's, it's rapidly reshaping how we create, learn, even how we think. Generative AI. I mean, it's not science fiction anymore, is it? It's here. It's now. Think ChatGPT, Adobe Fire.
Okay, so mind you, this is a one-page document. It made like a 14-minute podcast about ChatGPT, generative AI, and ethics. Right? But the fun part about this is students can actually ask the podcasters questions as it goes.
Mid-journey. Even sound. Whoa, did someone just break the fourth wall? Let's hear it.
Yeah, is disclosure like the most important part, or am I just confused?
That is such a good question.
And no, you are absolutely not confused.
Right.
Disclosure is huge.
It's the practical corner.
Anyways, sorry. I love that tool. It's fantastic. It does incredible things. I send this article to students. They can listen to the podcast, or I can download the podcast, put it in Canvas, and then I'll send them links to other things for them to read or look at. So they can hear the podcast. They don't have to read my academic article on gaming pedagogy or whatever. And then they can read other sources to really flesh it out. But it's controlled. It has far, far fewer hallucinations than a regular LLM. And it has built-in content for studying and learning and engaging. So you can ask questions of the text right in the text. So that sort of process. So yeah, how do you share the instructions on email checking? It's a good question. So it only works if you have your Copilot is integrated through the whole system. So like it's part of your 365 account, not just the Copilot for the web. But in Copilot, you just, let me see if I can pull it up. I can show you. Am I signed in? Not yet. I'm about to run out of time. I know I'm going to run out of time. That's how it always works. Why are you not letting me sign in? Okay, I'll share my screen. I can do this in a minute, I think. All right. So I sign in my Copilot and I'm in the work account because if you don't have work and personal and whatever, it's going to be different. And so this says M365 Cloud Microsoft up here that tells you I'm in the system, right? Let's see if it'll work today. Can you tell me which emails from today this week I have yet to respond. Let's see if it works. I mean, I don't mind failing in real time. So, you know, several. That's clearly my day's been going great, right? I didn't tell to rank them by the org chart, but you get the idea, right? No respond to message. This should be more loaded there because I had several already today. But that's the basic idea where you sort of work through the process and ask it and integrates. But for some reason, usually it's like I get a chunk list of things that are happening. So, you know, it has failure to perform issues. The other one that I highlight to people that my go-to action with all these tools now is I love the audio dictate button. So instead of typing out, I'm like, hey, ChatGPT, you're an instructional designer in this kind of content. This is what I need you to do. Can you guide me through? Like, I just talk to it and then hit send. And I do it on my phone because the app is fantastic. So that's, you know, the big overview. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There's lots of different ways to hack these things. I don't have all the answers, but I do know lots of creative ways we can get into trouble with them and helping them. It's not just a matter of does it make you more efficient. In many ways, these tools can help enhance your own work, can help enhance your course design, your course engagement, and can help you think through how we might do this with students in responsible ways. And I don't say go all out right up front. I'm saying take small steps to where you feel comfortable, then you're not overlooking your course. You don't want to cheat students out of the learning that goes with it. I mean, you know, writing is a way of learning, so I don't want them just to cheat their way through that process of like offloading the work of writing. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to help prepare them for a world that is intertwined with these technologies. And if we can find ways to use it in our own research, in our own professional work, then it allows us to think more strategically about how we will want students to engage with that content. And so with that, it's 1 o'clock. I believe I am out of time, Jeremiah.
Yes. Can you all join me in please extending a virtual round of applause for Justin today? Thank you so much for all that you have shared, the insight, the interactivity. And before anyone else asks, we will make available to you the recording, the presentation, and all of the resource links that have been shared today. We'll make sure we distribute that to everyone. So again, thank you all for joining us for our first session in the series. We'll pick up again on the express that was sent out with our next topic that'll be coming up. And thank you for just taking the time to engage with us today. And again, thank you, Justin, for sharing with us.
Happy to.
Thank you so much.